So Dale, thank you so much. And so now I want to turn it over to you, Chasen, right? So I'd like to start off with you. Like, Dale's telling us here that you're an original cast member from season one. Tell us your path of where you discovered the Mickey Mouse Club and your ascension into that program.
Excellent. Yeah, for sure. The craziest thing is I actually never auditioned for the Mickey Mouse Club. Um, Back in '88, there was that was when this worldwide kind of Star Search-ish casting call was going on, and Matt Casella started this endeavor, and he was looking to find a cast that represented the original cast. So there was a movie called Why Because We Like You that was going to be produced, and basically I'd gone through the audition there, and I actually went to Dallas. My dad got a random call, and we drove down. I'm from Oklahoma City, so we drove down in the middle of the night and checked into the hotel. And I had done a lot of these kinds of things before. I competed in tri-state areas, but we're talking I'm from Oklahoma, so it was only could do so much. But I was winning competitions and doing singing and dancing, and because I was in these random competitions, I could juggle and unicycle and do all these random things, tap dance, and so I came. I walked in the hotel about 1 a.m. With a friend of mine and my mom, and I had my boombox in one hand. With all my cassette tapes, that I was going to sing to or dance to if I needed to. And it was about 1 a.m. I had my Jams on. Remember Jams back in the day when people wore these loud shorts? I was 11 years old, and this is the coolest part: is that across the lobby, I hear some ruckus going on. It was 1 a.m., so there was not a lot going on at that time. But in comes 3 or 4, adults, kind of, hey, having a good time. And they'd obviously been out having some drinks and some dinner. And they yelled across the whole lobby, like, hey, look at that kid. Hey, are you here for the Mickey Mouse Club audition? And I turned around and was like, yeah. And he's like, and this guy said, well, we're the casting directors. And I was like, all right, cool. Let's go right now. And they laughed. They thought that was really funny. And he's like, no, we'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow. And I was like, oh, cool. That's cool. Right on. But because of that moment, the next day, like Dale said, there was over 1,000 people there in line, and you're like, stressing out, and when am I going to get in there, and the whole bit. Once I went in, he instantly remembered me from the night before, and which was just a great fate moment, and kind of gave me that chance to kind of relax for a second and not be so uptight. And I went through all my stuff, and I never came out of that room. My mom came in about 30-45 minutes later going, I'm looking for my son. And he had me come around and hang behind the table with him, and he was just feeding through auditions, and we were just palling around. It was just the easiest thing that happened. And Entertainment Tonight came in. They sent me off to Entertainment Tonight to be interviewed, and they were kind of telling me like, well, they really like you. And I was like, oh, they do? I was totally green to the whole thing. But that luck and just that kind of random, being ready for that moment was really important. I was ready in that timing that just kind of all the planets aligned. It was just kind of an incredible day. And I went to the callback in California, and this was still for the movie, and got the part. And at that time, one of the first writer strikes of my generation happened in 1988. And that's like all the shows went into reruns. David Letterman, all the talk shows were in reruns, everything. So they just cut that whole thing and said, we're obviously not going to do that. But at the same time in Florida, because Florida wasn't being affected by what was happening in the film industry, and same different laws, different rules, different union. The union hasn't really set up there. They were making this Disney Studios or MGM Studios. Now, when they first started this show, some people will tell you, like, no one really knows what the real agenda was for the show. Was it for the Disney Channel, or was it for the park? Because we were really serving two masters there. We were working for the Disney Channel, but yet every part of the set and every part of what we were doing in the recording studios, the dances, there was people walking by watching us at all times, which we could easily forget. And something that kind of weighed into our discipline of always trying to remember we're on every time we'd walk out. But it was just kind of incredible. And let's see, I made it through that audition. They did the writer's strike, and at that point they just said, you know what? Matt Casella said he instantly just took one picture off the wall and put it on the other bulletin board and said, well, I got one guy for this series now. Let's start building this series. And they started pulling people from the bulletin board from what he'd casted. And then they sent him back on the road to find more kids. And before you know it, we were on set and meeting each other for the first time. And I don't really think we knew what we were in for. It was incredible. But one of the really trippy things was we were all people. You've heard a lot of the other kids talk about the competition, and we all came in like, well, what does he do? What does he do? He's a dancer. Oh, he's a singer. Oh, all right. And we all could kind of do the same thing, but it was really interesting. How do you stick out? How do you stick out in a group where everybody's as talented as you are? You know, it was an interesting thing, and I think that's kind of to circle back kind of to what Dale was saying, and Fred and Nikki. I think that's where that authenticness and that lesson is really learned, because how do you stick out? How am I going to be important or special on this show when I got auditioned for all these great things I can do, but everybody else can do them on the show too? Like it became like not as special anymore. So what made us special was really who we were as people. And like, I was a redhead, or I could juggle, or I was quirky, or I wore my heart on my sleeve. I was emotional. We all had these little things that we learned that those were good things. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it was good to, a lot of times when we're kids, we're always looking at TV trying to be someone we're not, or trying to be like, yeah, I want to be that guy. I want to be that guy. I want those shoes. Or I want that shirt. They let us do whatever we want. I was wearing 2 different color shoes. I had one black shoe, one white shoe on. My hair was all spiked up. But we got mad fan mail for that, you know, because we were relatable in some quirky way. I was kind of the quirky guy. You know, there was the heartthrob. There was one of everybody that someone could relate to. It was really kind of special to learn that lesson. But that's how I made it there. And I truly think that happened because of luck. And that's not to say I didn't deserve it. I think luck is a really important thing to talk about. I talk about it to my kids that I teach. People say the luck is the residue of design, and if that's true, that's exactly what happened in that moment, because I came in ready and prepared, even though I didn't realize I was ready and prepared for that moment. I had all the tools in my belt. You know, what do you want me to juggle? You want me to tap dance? You want me to unicycle? What do you want? I got it.
Right.
And it just happened to be the perfect storm.
Well, that's an amazing story, and maybe you might be probably the only one that didn't have to go through the camping process and the stringent like audition full process.
There was a couple, yeah.
But I would like to continue on, like, you know, obviously you talked about like always being on and always being kind of in the public eye, always being on the ready. So you went through a very, you know, probably rigorous training program and process. Can you share with our audience, like, what was the number one lesson that you learned during your journey as an Ignacio member?
Oof, number one lesson. That's really hard to narrow down. Yeah, I mean that's the training was unbelievable for later on in life. Just to kind of, you know, to know that you can value yourself and all that kind of stuff I just mentioned is really important, because there's times when you're looking for a job, or you're filling out a resume and you're like, wait, do I have the skill set for this? What really makes me fit this? And sometimes it is just as easy as going in and meeting the person, shaking their hands, and realizing you guys are a great fit. You guys get along. And that relationship can get you that job and make you a better team member for that. When I'm teaching my kids and they're musicians, I always say, like, you know, if I'm going to book you on tour, I don't care if you're the best guitar player in the world. I'm going to probably hire the guy that's not an asshole. Like, if I have to go on the road with you and live with you and eat with you and like negotiate money and all this stuff, I want somebody who's like I can hang out with, and we can like compromise and talk and listen to each other. So I think those are real important things we all learned from each other. The discipline was insane, because the grueling schedule was really incredible. One thing I learned that I wish I would have done more of, and I wish someone would have kind of told me, that I try to pass on, and that is to be better at maintaining relationships. and that we toured the world. We were on tour all over the world as the Party with Hollywood Records, and sitting with everybody, Dr. Dre, Teddy Riley, Snoop Dogg. I mean, we were in rooms where, and sometimes it was, we were teenagers. So when you're a teenager, you're just kind of trying to fit in and be cool. And someone once told me, be cool, don't try to be, you know? So that's one of those things we try to adopt. But I'm trying to think, just, you know, passing a card is something as easy as passing a card, getting a phone number. That's half of it, but maintaining that relationship, you know, not just calling on somebody when you need something, like we've all done at some point in our life. Dale and I talked about this the other day with Joey Fatone. You know, Joey Fatone, somebody who I've kept in touch with since we left the Mickey Mouse Club. We didn't just call him and say, hey man, you want to do this to help us out? It made sense. He was there all along. He's been our bro all along. He's been supporting us all along. A lot of times when people go to college, you know, they rely on the people and the relationships they made in college. We didn't really have that. We kind of had this weird experience, and then we kind of split off from each other and went back to, okay, how do we make it work now? Well, now we really have to become an entrepreneur. Now we have to kind of sift back and remember all these things we learned about branding and content creation and engagement. And yeah, but I would really say a main thing is I would stress relationships and maintaining those relationships, and knowing when to call on people, knowing how to build teams. Don't go build a team with just people who you think are the greatest at their job. Build them with people who you can trust and want to move forward with.
I think those are some great lessons, right? So building, developing relationships, maintaining them, and having the discipline to do so is great insight. So Chasen, now let's talk about what that training and that experience led to today. Like, can you share with everybody what you're doing currently professionally and how the training and the experience you had led you to what you're doing now as a professional?
Absolutely. I spent many a year in Los Angeles running and gunning and doing shows and doing singing and acting and the whole bit. Where I really landed and found myself in love was working with children. And I ended up a music director for a studio out in Agora Hills, California. And I had never heard of Agora Hills, California before I went out there and started doing this. But I ended up with a good 200 or 300 kids, and we had summer camps, and I just fell in love kind of, you know, sharing the experience I had as a child in this industry, because all these guys were children. And a lot of times the parents would be like, you know, is this right? Or is my kid even good enough to do this? I really had that knowledge to tell them, like, yes, and this is what you can expect, and or no, maybe you should just try something else. He's not into it. You're making him do it. Don't do that. But what was really cool about this studio is the location is kind of the south side, or I should say the north side of Malibu. So it was a really prominent area, and I had no idea at the time. But my students were like all celebrities' kids, like Slash's children, Nikki Sixx from Motley Crue, the Elton John band, guys from Tool, Incubus. I mean, you name it, they were in that area, and they would come and help out. They'd they'd program the keyboards for us, or they would run up on stage and do shows with us. So even still, as me, an artist, you know, I was a teacher here, but even still me as an artist, I'm getting this amazing experience on stage now with Slash, or on stage with the Elton John band singing Rocket Man with the guys who really wrote it. Like, how is this happening? Again, from giving back though. And I think that's a really cool thing that keeps happening in my life. By giving back, I'm receiving some great things. And this Mickey Mouse Club, 30th anniversary is one of them. The fact that these guys trust me and trust Dale with their memories, because this was very important to all of us, because we were children. So it's where we grew up, or we went to school, where we had our first kiss or girlfriend. Yeah, I mean, it's deep. I mean, it's really deep. In fact, it's so deep that Dale talks about how there'd be no, notebook or no in sync or these kinds of fun things to talk about. But for me, I met my wife on the first season. I was 13 years old. She walked in and she was in the audience, and she had no idea what she was there for. She got pulled in to be in the audience from the studio, and we laid eyes on each other and had a crush on each other. Went on a date at Pleasure Island. Our parents dropped us off, And there was no internet or cell phones back then, but we kept in touch, and we're married today. I have two beautiful children, and we go back to Disney all the time because it's literally where we first met. It's the pinnacle. It's everything, you know. And I wouldn't have what I have now as far as my family, and my family is obviously the most important thing to me. My wealth is my memories, honestly. I don't live too highfalutin, but I really love to give back, and I really fell in love with giving back to children, and I continue to do that to this day. I mentor children. I teach children online. I have a couple bands out here in Boston that I still work with. I work with guys in California still online. A lot of artist development stuff. I as well still sing. I'll never put that down. It'll never go away. It's therapeutic for me to be a songwriter and to kind of get my feelings out and be able to still do that. I just had a new single I released called I Die Without You, an old 90s song cover from PM Dawn that they did in the 90s. Mm-hmm. Actually, a really cool story with that is, Dale's talking about, like what are some of the greatest things about this, the Mickey Mouse Club, that this reunion that's going to be really special to us, and talking about the fans and the connection to our fans. And I did something really interesting with this new single. Instead of, a lot of times when we're content creating and doing stuff online, we don't realize it, but our pages become a little bit too promotional pages. Right. And people just kind of like, yeah, okay, there, you've got another something for sale. Okay. But what I did is I kind of flipped the script and turned it back on them. And I said, hey, could everybody send in a picture of them of something they would die without? And they just started pouring in. And I said, and can you also tell me who's in the picture and what that story is? And I got flooded with thousands of these messages and engagement that I didn't have to sponsor. I didn't have to do anything. It just kept coming because people wanted to talk about themselves. Right. And tell me about themselves rather than me tell them about me. They already know about me. Why do I have to tell them about me? So here they were telling me about them. And I really didn't even realize what I had done until I started reading these messages, and I started just bawling because some of them were about fertility, children that had passed away. One girl showed her husband and said, he just got deported. We need him back. His kids are here. I mean, there was just these stories that would just rip your heart out. And what I did is I took all those pictures that I asked to send in. I said, I think I'm going to make a CD cover. So we'll do a little contest, and what I did is this. I took all those photos, and they're all in here, and they made a huge mosaic. And it basically says, I die without you. But each one of those is a picture. I don't know if you can see.
Wow, that's awesome.
But it's online. You can really get close up. It can get really crazy. But the connection to our fans, and I think when we see our fans just mean so much to us because they've been there for 30 years. They've supported us all this time. Like Tony's talked about, they've given him a career. They show up to these shows, rain or shine. It's really special, that we've been able to do that. And with the internet and all that, it's made it incredibly easier to do that. But
well, I'm glad you're bringing that up because you're actually reading my mind. The next question I wanted to ask you is like, what would be the one piece of advice you give to an entrepreneur who is looking to become successful in today's modern age of technology and social media? I mean, would you say it's the ability for people to like make the connection, really try to listen to people on social media and getting their feedback like you did on your page, or what would that be?
It is, and Dale actually mentioned that too, to really listen to what your fans want, because they will tell you if you ask. I can tell you, yeah, and they really will. Yeah, I can tell you that it's incredibly difficult now to navigate the industry because, as you said, the gates are down. Everybody can be a singer. Everybody can call themselves whatever they are. You don't know if it's real or not. You can put yourself on iTunes in 24 hours. So there's so much noise. So how do you stick out? I would tell people to not be afraid of change and to be able to pivot and be nimble. They might not end up being the lead singer of a band. They might end up being the background singer of a band. You can still stay within your industry, but you might find that your greatest success is not what you originally planned it to be. I would be an early adopter in new technology. I think that's important because it's kind of the Wild West right now with how, no one's making money off selling music. But with licensing and there's other little nuances of the industry you can get into and find. but it's always changing. It's always morphing. So I would just really be on, you know, the research and kind of figuring out what's out there and figuring out how to, not being afraid to try new things and promote yourself on new sites or with new companies, or, you know.
Awesome. So
That's a good idea.
obviously you're co-producing as an executive producer this amazing event happening at Walt Disney World to celebrate the Mickey Mouse Club reunion event. What inspires you and motivates you, and what gets you most excited to participate at the event yourself? And then what would you tell someone who's on the fence about whether or not they might want to attend and participate themselves?
Wow. Again, it's just so special to me that all these years have gone by and all these people are still with us. But I think what's really going to be special is seeing the families. Our parents are rock stars. Our parents split families to go. You know, my dad stayed in Oklahoma. My mom went to Florida. Damon's dad stayed in Houston. People split to make this work and make this happen. Our families really went out of their way to just, I think, to see our families, seeing the other family members, and because, you know, they haven't hooked up in so long, and I think that's going to be real fun to watch. It's going to be real fun to watch the newer generation of our children seeing each other, and our parents seeing our children, and I think it's going to be really special. And hearing all the Mouseketeers excited about it, as Dale said, is really special to me. The fact that they are letting us, or trusting us with their memories, like I said, and kind of letting us run with it, not questioning us one iota. Just, you guys are awesome. I can't believe you're doing this. Go for it. That's really special.
That's amazing. And so
I want to say real quick too, I think as far as like someone coming that might be on the fence, you've heard of Justin Timberlake, you've heard of Britney Spears, you've heard of Christina Aguilera, you've heard of Ryan Gosling. These are just the people you've heard about. There's other people. If you made it through that audition process, you had to be pretty talented. So I think you'll be pretty surprised. And when you come, you're going to see some performances, even if they're off the cuff, you're going to be quickly reminded, like, oh my God, like, these guys are insane. Like, so we're going to have fun. We're going to let loose. We're going to get up on stage. We're going to, you know, get the crowd involved. The party might even do some songs, our old band from Hollywood Records, because there'll be a number of us there. So we're going to have a blast, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah.
Awesome. So obviously, you know, having had this illustrious connection with Walt Disney, the Mickey Mouse Club, has led to great relationships and introductions to people like you talk, like that are, you know, very well known, famous. But outside the world of Walt Disney and Mickey Mouse Club, is there somebody that's here with us today that you would love to connect with at some point? Obviously, they could be a Mickey Mouse Club member. They could be watching this, reading about this. Who's that one person you'd love to connect with?
Yeah, man. Wow. I have to truly say that the most interesting people to me are usually the people that aren't famous. I met some of the bombing people, you know, the guys, the heroes in the bombing, like, guys who do stuff like that are just blow me away. And seeing some of these fans, meeting some of these fans, and really finding out about their lives and their struggles and what they've been through in their life has really been special to me. As far as like just dreaming and thinking like, wow, what would that be like? I kind of want to say like a Russell Simmons or a Rick Rubin, I think would be awesome. I mean, if you got a beard like that and you're working, and you got to know some secrets. I'm very interested in being an artist management. I went to Berkeley for that. I love just learning new things and artist development and finding new talent. And I think it's awesome. And I think artist management is something that really intrigues me. So Rick Rubin or Russell Simmons, or even a Troy Carter, who was the manager for Lady Gaga. Lots of really, really cool people out there.
Interesting. Cool. Well, I think, gentlemen, I appreciate you guys being here for this interview. I look forward to you guys hosting an amazing event, a first-class event that everyone can celebrate and rejoice and just have tons of fun. And so thank you for being here with us today.
Man, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. We're going to have a blast.